Sound check. How's my voice sound? All right, what do we got? 13. Not bad for a flash live stream. Folks will trickle in. All right. Neon green wife beater. Yeah, this is my civvies. When it's not the Wylock t-shirt, these are my civvies. All right. So I'm moving. So all of this will be moved. We're getting a new house. I have a huge basement and a dedicated room targeted to become the new armory. Very excited. But as a result, I will not be touching hot glue or paint for like 2 months. So we're gonna have to subsist on live streams and what we're talking about here, neon skies. A little quiet. All right, I've increased the gain. Let's see. Any names I recognize? Ricardo, I know that name. John McElroy's Ghost. Zerto, Scorpion. All right. Before I go over this document here in front of us, what's everyone else up to? We'll give a few more minutes for people to roll in. Meantime, I'll organize my OBS studio here. Okay. All right. Well, you know what? I'll just I finally picked up the art of map drawing. Isometric. Ah, yes. That's super fun. It's a sort of a puzzle in and of itself. So, hey, I've been spending a couple hours a night getting the first official public playtest packet ready. Hold on, let me turn this music down. Okay. There we go. Put us in the mood. So, I thought I would just do some dev work in front of you, show you what it's about. So, here's the current working version of the book. Anything in red text is still in progress, but I've gotten the design language down, picked fonts and headers and stuff. And this is laid out for print. There will be a print option, most likely hardback. Let's see. Yeah, so you got your usual stuff that you find in most books. Introduction, what is a role-playing game? And then a section if you're coming from other role-playing games and how this one is different than things you might be used to. It talks about dice. All you need are D6s, no D20s. Truth be told, I don't like D20s. I like D6s and nothing but. Get a spot here where I can look at chat. The core mechanic of this game, and really I call it the power curve system. I had intended originally that this would be genre agnostic and you could adapt it as you'd like, but I decided to start with a more targeted thing, and I've been on a cyberpunk kick. So whenever your character attempts to do something, you'll be told to roll X. Roll X means roll that many D6s, and as long as one of them is a 6, then you've succeeded. Multiple 6s don't matter. It's at least 1 6 is all that matters. Success is strictly binary, yes or no. And then you'll add or subtract dice based on things like your abilities, situational modifiers, all that kind of stuff. More dice, better chance to get a 6. If you would ever roll 0 dice or less, you automatically fail. If you would ever roll 12 dice or more, no roll is needed, you automatically succeed. So that's it. That is the core mechanic, and that's what I call the power curve system. So if you look at this chart over here, this is the whole crux of it. This is how everything works. Your percent chance to succeed as a function of number of dice rolled is given right here, and you can see it's not linear like it would be in the D20 system. It's like a curve, and I think this simulates action pretty well. Imagine that you're an expert at the thing you're trying to do, and you're rolling like 10 dice, which would be around the upper end for someone who is an expert in the system. You've got an 84% chance to succeed, but also if there's some modifier that penalizes you a die or two for whatever reason, it only goes down to 81 or 77. It shows that you're kind of immune. You're not very sensitive to negative effects, which makes sense if you're a master of something. Conversely, down at the lower end, 2 dice is a 31% chance, 3 dice is a 42% chance, and you go up to 52. Things change very rapidly down here. Flukes are more likely to happen when you're an amateur at something. So I call this the power curve system, which is technically not the correct use of the term as far as probability studies go, but it's close enough. All right. Makes sense in math. On a table, it seems weird. Well, there's lots of dice pool systems out there. World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade. It's just here, you don't have to worry about different targets. It's just get 1/6. And nothing's ever going to change a die roll result. So the intent is the whole thing plays fast and furious. You don't have to pause and remember this modifier here, and it's very streamlined. There's going to be a section here for setting, kicking things off. Here's a short story. Example of play, as most books have, so this has yet to be written. All right, character. So, character. Rather than read through this page, I'll just go to the character sheet itself. Here's the character sheet. You got your name, whether you're awakened or not, and your condition. You're only ever in 4 conditions. Healthy, injured, down, and dying. There's no hit points. Just 4 possible conditions you can be in. Scores. You have 3 main, they're called pillars: body, mind, and soul. They're kind of self-explanatory. You got your physical stuff, your mental stuff, and then that X factor, how well you interact with people, how well you understand the world, your soul. Each of these is tied to a secondary characteristic. You can see the glowing connectors there. Toughness, cyber, and knack. These are just 2 times the score above. So your body, mind, and soul, you'll pick what's most important to you. That gets a 3. What's least important? That gets a 1. And the other one gets a 2. Then you multiply all of them by 2 to get your toughness, cyber, and knack. Things in the game will affect these scores, and we call that a malus. So if your character becomes addicted to a drug, if you suffer a grievous injury, if something weird happens, whatever, it can temporarily change your score. And therefore, whenever you need to roll, say the admin, the game master is called the admin. If they tell you to roll body, okay? If your body score is a 3, that means you're rolling 3 dice. And if you get a 6, you succeed. So if you have a malus, say you got a disease or an addiction or something that drives your body score from a 3 down to a 2, now you're rolling 2 dice until you get it resolved. So that's what you record in the status effects box. Down here you got your inventory, okay, weapons, armor, ammunition, and then the rest of your inventory. Verse is short for universal credit, which is the form of currency in this fictional setting. That's probably going to change, but your money goes in this field here. Biografts, key tenet of a cyberpunk setting. So you have 5 slots: your head, your torso, left arm, right arm, and legs. And you can install I intend to have dozens and dozens of biographs in the rule book that you can pick from, build them, buy them, whatever. But if you have the slot available, you can install it there, and it confers some mechanical impact. So we'll look at biographs in a moment, but as a design choice, biographs are never dependent upon your scores. They have nothing to do with the scores up here. The whole spirit of the thing, the spirit of cyberpunk, is self-improvement, artificial self-improvement through technology. So biographs are where you can sort of level the playing field. GM should be sysadmin. Yeah, maybe. And then finally, the last thing on the character sheet is your traits. And this is where the rubber meets the road. So notice there are no classes. There are no professions, no jobs. You pick a la carte from a long list of traits that make you better at certain things or give you certain abilities in the first place. And you design your own custom class, as it were, by choosing your traits. Anecdote, talk about that later. Quirk is it's a trait that's a negative. You got to have one quirk, a thing that makes you, that's a downside. And then your indevs, 2 traits that are always in development. There are no character levels in this system. Your scores will never change. They are set at the moment of character creation, and they stay that way forever. Again, malices are temporary effects. The root score will never change. The way character development happens is horizontally, not vertically. So you gain more traits. You can pick a new skill that you want to learn. You'll list it as an in-dev trait and start working towards it and marking off XP in these little boxes here. Once you get enough XP, it becomes a trait that you know, and you pick something else to work on. That's all of character development. That's how it works. And the intent there is you can sit down, like in D&D, when you start out, you're killing goblins and skeletons pretty predictably at low levels, and there's a progression. I like to be able to jump right into the action, but still feel like it's earned and that it makes sense. This setting is a near future dystopian Earth. It's mostly people, right? There's no monsters or anything. So that's what I tried to reflect. This is a printer-friendly version of the character sheet. All right, so back up here. All right, quick character creation. So like I said, you rank your pillars 1 through 3, body, mind, and soul. Multiply each of them by 2 to get their associated toughness, cyber, and knack. Knack is, well, we'll get to that. Traits, choose your traits, choose a quirk and an anecdote, purchase some equipment, and then mark off your character's condition, which is healthy to start with. So, all right, then we move on. I have a page here of archetypes. This is completely optional. It's for people who are used to their role-playing games having classes with a set, maybe a few branches and choices you can make, but the class or the profession has a list of specific abilities. If you want a quick start or you're trying out the system for the first time, the intent is this page will give you choices. We'll have made the choices for you. So these are in development, but I'd like to make a detective. What traits should you take to play a classic detective? All the tropes from cyberpunk. All right, let's check the chat real quick. All right, so traits. Here we go. This is where the rubber meets the road. You can have up to 3 ranks in a trait. You start out with 1 that costs 3 experience points to gain the first rank, 6 more points to gain the second rank, and 9 more points to gain the third, for a total of 18 experience to master a trait. Here's a list of all the traits just grouped for convenience by like what they do, but down here is where they begin. So for example, trait called athletic. Whenever you roll to attempt an athletic feat, apply your body as a bonus. So in italics, there's some example here. So you're going to climb up a gutter. The admin might say, all right, that's not impossible. It's also not negligibly simple. So I'm going to ask the player for a roll. I'm going to tell him roll body. Body is the most applicable of the 3 pillars. So that character might have a body score of 2. They're going to roll 2 dice and try and get a 6. Low chance of success, but that player might say, wait, I have 2 ranks in athletic. Does that apply? And the admin says yes. And so this says, whenever you attempt an athletic feat, yeah, that's climbing a gutter. So apply your body as a bonus. Now he's got 2 ranks, so he gets to do that twice. So 2 for the initial roll, 2 more for the first rank, 2 more for the second rank. That's 6 dice total, which gives you a 67% chance to succeed, 2/3 of the time. What's another trait? Charismatic. Whenever you try to influence some, so you can see there's 6 of them in here that are clear carryovers from D&D, but they're baked in. So there are no skills in this game. Skills, attribute scores, magical powers, all of that is baked into traits. And the intent is that a brand new character should have about 4 traits. What is the digital world going to be like? We'll get to that in a moment. Let's look at what's another trait here. Like intuitive. Whenever you roll to determine the subtext of a social situation, apply your soul as a bonus. So ranks stack. If you have 3 ranks in a thing, you apply it 3 times. So if you had 3 ranks in intuitive, you're applying your soul score 3 times as a bonus. So that can get you, up to 12 dice or more. All right, so here's a list of all the traits. And I think they're pretty close to finalized. Don't want to have too few, don't want to have too many. Quirks, I've only come up with a few so far, but things like vertigo. Whenever you roll to perform any task while at a height, such as at the ledge of a building, rooftop, or in a penthouse of a scraper with a wall of pure windows, you'll apply a -1 dice penalty. So if you're in that fancy penthouse full of windows, you've got vertigo, your character is suffering a 1 dice penalty for any roll that they attempt while they're in that situation. So quirks. And more to come. So there's lots of notes in red text here to play testers. Psionics, which are not really psionics. There's a lore, a narrative explanation of what's really going on, but basically how do I do this without boring everybody? I'm gonna skip it for now. But bottom line, psionic powers are a thing. Only a limited number of characters will ever get access to it. You have to undergo a process to become awakened, which is highly dangerous and should provide for good role-playing experiences. But psionics, these are just more traits. They're treated exactly as traits. It's simply, you only have access to this page if you've become awakened. Next section, night thriving or adventuring. Because I don't think you really adventure in Cyberpunk. Rather, you go out at night into the city and you thrive. There is no more thrilling way to live than on the edge of an adrenaline rush for all of your waking hours. All right, so doing things. Later in this chapter, there's going to be a few systems like for combat and hacking with specific rules, much like any other role-playing system, right? Nothing is ever totally abstracted. There's usually one-offs. And that's the case here, but it says, for any other task that a character might try, the admin selects the most appropriate of the 3 pillars, body, mind, or soul, and tells the player to roll that pillar. So they'll pick up that many dice and try and get a 6. The player shall advise the admin of any sort of traits or abilities or equipment, anything they have that they think should allow them to add to their dice pool. Admin doesn't ever need to apply bonuses or penalties arbitrarily. There are no difficulty modifiers. There are no target numbers. There's no difficulty classes. It's simply, does the player need to roll or not? And then you let the player's abilities, the player characters' scores and abilities and stuff play out. All right. Didn't know you were going live tonight. Neither did I, till 5 minutes before I went live. Okay, malices we talked about earlier. Knack. All right. Knack is one of your secondary abilities. It's the one tied to soul. Your soul times 2 equals your knack. And what knack does is before attempting any roll, you can add bonus dice to your dice pool up to the amount of knack you have. And you spend it throughout the day. It replenishes at downtime or long rest if you're used to D&D. But so there's an example here. You got a knack score of 5. She's going to burn 3 knack to make sure this pistol hits her target. So she adds 3 dice to her existing dice pool and rolls. But this needs to be tracked on the character sheet. So she's got 2 more dice of knack remaining until her next downtime. Currency is measured in universal credits. Gotta bounce. All right. See a dungeon masterpiece. Encumbrance. Weight is measured abstractly in terms of WT. These are whole integers, and it's something like 0 to 10. Basically, weapons and weapons and armor have weight, and almost nothing else does. Really, encumbrance is just a way to limit the combination of armor and weapon that you're able to use. All right, soaking damage and wounds. I mentioned earlier, you're only ever in one of 4 conditions: healthy, injured, down, or dying. If you take a wound, you move down 1 slot. Okay? So 4 wounds and you're dead. Whenever you take damage, there's a chance to soak the damage so that you don't take a wound. Whenever you take damage, it says you would roll your toughness minus the weapon's damage, or whatever the thing's damage is. So remember, toughness is your body score times 2. Let's imagine you have a body of 2, so your toughness is a 4. The weapon's damage, a pistol, I think off the top of my head, I think a pistol is 1 damage. So 4 minus 1 is 3. You're rolling 3 dice to see if you can absorb that wound. If you do, good to go. If you fail, you take a wound and you move down 1 position. So high toughness characters will naturally be better at soaking wounds and sticking around longer. All right, firefights. This is the rules for combat, and it all fits on 1 page, which you're looking at right now. Combat is intended to run pure theater of the mind without having to fudge or compromise anything, and no miniature terrain needed at all. Well, I said theater of the mind. So it starts with whoever in the narrative initiated the hostilities goes first, and then action continues clockwise. There's no rolling initiative. Things don't stop. You just move right into it. What you do on your turn in combat is select 1 maneuver and select 1 action. There are only 4 maneuvers to pick from. Scramble is the default one. It's assumed that in a firefight, you're darting around, you're doing somersaults, you're moving around and staying in action. That's scramble. That's the default option, and there's no mechanical rules impact. You can take cover, duck behind an environmental feature. You may not take the attack action this turn, but also no one may fire guns at you until your next turn. Protect. You can step in as a shield for someone. And hold. Plant your feet and steel yourself. Add 2 dice to any attack rolls you make, but anyone attacking you also adds 2 dice to their rolls till your next turn. So you choose a maneuver, and that sort of abstractly simulates your movement in the field of combat. After that, you pick your action. Attack, aug up, which is consume an aug, which is a a potion, or in the case of this setting, like a drug. And then, let's see, switch weapons, self-explanatory, or hijack, perform a quick version of hacking. So there's only 4 maneuvers and there's only 4 actions. You pick one of each, and that's your turn in combat. Considering your channel's history of terrain and mini creation, why go with Theater of the Mind? Because I think it's way more fun at the table. Things don't get bogged down. You certainly could use terrain and miniatures in this system, and that'll help with immersion at the table. People will enjoy seeing it, which I think is what it's all about. But you don't need to worry about a grid. You don't have to measure distances. I have always found that stuff to be not very fun. I ignore, like, when I'm running my games, if one of my players in D&D is like 8 squares away, but their movement is 30, most characters move 6 squares, right? I ignore that. If he wants to go the 8, he goes the 8. So that's just, I'm writing the game that I want to play. What program are you using to lay out Neon Skies? Just Microsoft Word. How do we get in on testing playing? Just follow my Facebook. I'll be making a public post in the next couple weeks with the first official packet. So anyway, if you took the make an attack action in combat, which you most likely will do, you got your ranged attacks, which is firing a gun. That means roll mind, whatever your mind score is. And if you're making a melee attack, it says you need to have taken the scramble maneuver, and you roll body instead of mind. If you roll, so you'll try and get a 6, and if you succeed, your hit has landed. The victim then sees if their armor absorbs the attack. So the victim will roll right here, defense minus armor piercing. Defense is determined by the armor you're wearing. It's just a number. And the armor piercing is associated with the weapon. 2 numbers. If this, and like always, if this number would be below 0 or below, the victim's armor is automatically going to fail. The attack is too significant. So if this fails, then they have to try and soak the damage as described earlier, right here. In other words, when making an attack, there's up to 3 rolls happening. The person makes the attack, that's 1 roll. The victim makes an armor roll, and then if failed, they try to soak the damage. That's combat. All right, so hacking. Hacking, there are 2 types of hacking in the game. Hijacks and dives. Hijacks are quick things. So in this setting, everyone is connected to the OmniNet, what they used to call the internet. Everyone has a cranial implant that's installed at birth. You are wirelessly on the OmniNet at all times, like all other electronic devices in the world. So a hijack can be performed on any person or device, anything that's on the OmniNet within 100 meters of you that you can physically see. You simply roll your cyber. Again, cyber is the secondary from your mind. Whatever your mind score is times 2, that's your cyber. So you'll roll that many dice, and if successful, you get the effect. There are 4 hijacks to pick from. Spike, so you can try and, it's an attack on the person. Try and scramble their brains a bit. They take damage equal to your mind score and must try to soak it as usual. Reboot, the victim can't take an action on their next turn. Breach, this is like get into a security device and disable it. Toggle, like turn on a light, something like that. These are being refined, but that's the idea behind hijacks. How long do you think you'll stream for? Probably another half hour. Questions? I don't have any preference for types of questions. This is a sneak peek overview of a near-ready playtest packet. Drink choice is Miller Lite. Plans for Neon Skies sound effects music boards in Sirenscape. No plans. I recommend what I do is I go to YouTube and I say 3 hours fantasy ambiance or 3 hours synthwave, which is what I'm playing right now that you can hear. So the other type of hack is a dive, and little explanation first of all. So the OmniNet I mentioned earlier has 5 levels to it. The WorldNet, which is your default location, fairly safe place. To dive or to hack is to start to descend levels where more sensitive information is, but also where it's more dangerous. SecNet, that gives you access to most public networks like email, banking, social media. Level 3 is the Darknet, where you can go to converse when meeting in the physical world is not possible or desirable. Virtual infrastructure for the commerce of illicit goods and services. So level 3 is the Darknet. Level 4 is the Subnet. Backdoors to corporate servers live here. If you're going to go in, steal the new formula from Viridian Pharmaceuticals for the cancer vaccine they've come up with, you're probably going to have to go down to the Subnet to do it. And then level 5, the Milnet. This is where eyes-only, world-altering information is stored. So in a dive, it's sort of like combat, where there's some structure at the table. There are turns, there are rounds. You'll perform either a dive, go down a level, or a bail, go back up 1 level. And after each of those moves, the admin will roll on this little table here to determine what happens. Now this is being refined, so you only see 3 things right now, and don't put stock in it because the rules aren't finalized. But for example, firewall. So you do a dive, admin rolls, there's a firewall here. Next turn you have to do a bail and try again. Daemon, block of security code has noticed you, is trying to burn you out. It says roll cyber minus OmniNet level. So this is where the OmniNet level itself starts to matter. Level 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you're on level 4, you're subtracting 4 from your dice pool. Cyber minus 4. That would be a tough roll. So that's how things get more difficult and dangerous as you go down in the OmniNet. Being burned, if you fail, stuff. I won't go through that. Completing the hack. All right, and then here we go. Ciphers. This is what helps you level the playing field. These are basically consumables. Think like a potion or a spell scroll. Ciphers are consumables that you can use instantly, and they have a one-time effect. So here's the list of them. And there will be more, but for example, trace root. Well, let's not talk about that one. Let's say, here we go. Burn ice. It says, execute at the moment you roll against a daemon. You automatically succeed. So a moment ago, I was talking about how you descend and the admin rolls and a daemon has found you. So roll cyber minus OmniNet level. Subtracting 4, that's going to hurt. Don't need to do it. I'm going to execute this instance of burn ice that I have in my inventory. Scratch it off my inventory. It's tracked just like an item. Scratch it off my inventory, and I automatically succeed. Continue with the dive. What's next? That's how ciphers work. Ciphers, it's just a program. You can buy programs. You can also write them yourself. If you have a trait that says you're really good at it, you'll probably be able to write a lot. Maybe you go 3 ranks in that trait, and your character sort of makes a good living writing ciphers and selling them off. Let's look at chat here. How long do you estimate from playtest to release? My goal is to have the final product published before the end of this calendar year. Looking good so far. I'd be interested. Got to bounce. All right. Thanks for joining, Ricardo. Are you commissioning the artwork yet? Yes. David Simons of Arcvane Art is my guy. This right here. So this character is a preliminary work from him. I think he's going to add a background to it. But he's working on other things too right now as we speak for me. So, yep, artwork is ongoing. So is the lore. I've hired a creative writer, and together we are working on the lore Bible, and he's already written a short story. It's the one that appeared in my recent video. And Yeah. Do you have a video on how to make bushes? No, I don't. Sorry. Do ciphers get corrupted and destroyed upon a critical fail burn? No, the intent of ciphers is that they are consumable, helping things. Right now, there's no mechanic where they can backfire on you. All right, clarifying the difference between hijacks and dives. Level 6, this is a little bit of lore. There's a rumor of a 6th level below the Millnet. Some call it the analog route. It's said to be a dark place that assaults the mind without mercy. Being burned there could mean permanent death in the physical world. Hacking example, this will be just like the playing example up top. So that'll be filled out. How did you select where you wanted to place art? Wherever there was white space, when I had nothing left to say on the page, wherever it seems to make sense, it just sort of develops naturally. Oh, Scott's here. Great. Scott B. Smith is that writer I was talking about. All right, downtime. In D&D, you're used to a long rest. Here, a long rest is called downtime, and it's not a passive thing. So in the setting, everyone comes out at night. People are nocturnal. When the sun starts to come up, you go and sleep and tend to your minutia of the day, and you can do downtime actions. So first, you spend 20 currency to account for your living expenses, and if you do, the following occurs. Your condition returns to healthy. All your hit points return. Knack dice are reset, like I said earlier. And then you can perform any two of the following downtime actions in any combination. And there's only, I think, 7 of them. So hit the markets. Go and sell loot. Buy a new grenade launcher, whatever you want to do. So you can hit the markets. There's rules in here for haggling, which depends upon your soul score. But that's all contained in this little section right here. You could visit a doctor. For 100 credits, a doctor can cure you of a malus, or install a biograft, or remove a biograft. Code, hunker down in a dark cafe and attempt to write a cipher. So I mentioned you can make your own ciphers. This is where you do it as a downtime action. It says roll cyber, and if successful, you've got a copy stored away for later use. Scavenge. Go to a burned out derelict part of town and scrounge around. So if you're just looking to bolster your inventory, find some new loot, you can go and do that as a downtime action. This table will be filled out with, ammo, chems, augs, weapons, whatever. Party. Find a local dive or a rave, party up, make some contacts, overhear a thing or two, befriend a fellow denizen of the night, score some free drugs or code slabs. So it says choose one of the following and roll soul. Simple. So, and then lastly, development. You can gain an XP towards an in development trait. I mentioned earlier, you've always got 2 traits in development. You can, as a downtime action, say, I want to gain an XP in one of these. And you give a flavorful reason. So like, I spend a few hours at the shooting range to improve my skills with my sidearm. Admin says, okay, mark an XP for weapons training, which is a trait, weapons training. So those are the downtime actions. You pick 2 of them, and it can be 2 of the same, but that's how you do downtime. What made you choose Cyberpunk over Fantasy? What is the goal for release? Drive-thru RPG, digital and or hard copy? I chose Cyberpunk because I've researched the actual Cyberpunk 2077 and read rule sets by Mike Pondsmith, and I love the setting, but I do not like the rule systems. I like very streamlined rules, and they're not very streamlined. I love this setting, and I'm just fatigued on fantasy, so that's why I picked it. I'm still determining whether it'll be Drive-Thru RPG or some other print-on-demand service that takes less of a cut. I don't know yet. Sounds simple enough. Awesome idea. Yeah, thanks. Let's see. Will you be adding a true tile to Heroes Horde or a possible Kickstarter? I appreciate your engineer background. I'll also love Mrs. Wylock videos. All right, I'll tell her that. True tiles, haven't touched in a while. No plans to touch it in the near future. Well, I can't say it'll always be that way. I just, at the moment, I don't have any plans for that. Moving on, you get the main section for equipment and loot. Talks about weapons, talks about ammo. Ammo is handled abstractly, just like encumbrance or weight. Ammo, you don't track individual bullets that you fire. You shoot the gun, it's assumed that you have the ammo for it, as long as you have at least one ammo in your inventory of the right type. All of the weapons, you'll see in a moment, have a special ability, though, where you can choose to spend ammo to do something extra with that weapon. And if you choose to do that, which is optional, that's how you start to burn ammo. So ammo is handled in single units. Having like 10 ammo in your inventory would be a lot. Armor. There's 4 classes of armor. They give you a number. I told you earlier how they fit into the roll to soak, or not to soak damage, to avoid taking damage. Ciphers, talked about those. Augs, talked about those. These are potions. And then junk. Any mundane item that isn't literally trash counts as junk. A metal cylinder, a leather strap, a car's gear shift lever. These are all junk. Junk has a weight of 0 and a value of 10 credits. The actual nature of the item only matters for role-playing purposes. You can just write junk on your character sheet, or you could write fabric strips, whatever. The junk is used as a raw material for many abilities, or many traits. So like there's I think it's a Tinkerer trait. You can improve weapons, and the trait says something like consume 5 junk and then roll something, and then you might be able to improve a weapon. So junk is an abstract handling of all other stuff in your inventory that isn't weapons, ammo, armor, ciphers, or augs. This is the table page, formatted and consolidated to one page specifically for use at the admin screen. So you got your weapon types. Earlier I mentioned armor piercing, damage, weight, the ammo type that they use, and then their special ability. So for example, you're going to fire your submachine gun. You can do that. You don't got to track any ammo. You're just going to fire your submachine gun. But maybe you say, before you roll to attack, you say, I'm going to spend 1 ammo. And the special ability, it says, add 1 to the damage. So, tick off 1 ammo on my character sheet. But now, if this thing hits and it gets through their armor, it's dealing an extra damage. So that's how we make ammo matter, but also not be so tedious that you have to track individual bullets after every single attack that you make. I've abstracted it a good amount. Sorry, where am I buying this again? It's Friday. May have had a few barley sodas. Go Red Wings. Yeah, go Red Wings. Ammo ID is great. Thanks. Let's see. There's only 5 types of ammo. Got your low caliber, small bullets, big bullets, shells, explosives, and capacitors. Capacitors are used for energy weapons. The table up here says what type of ammo the weapon uses. And again, as long as you have at least 1 ammo of that type in your inventory, you can use that weapon. Here's the types of armor, 4 types of armor. Here's the augs, and there will be more, but these are the consumables. Morphine. Effect. Your condition improves by 1. Bump. Whenever it says, whenever you would apply your body score as a bonus, apply an additional +2 dice. So Flash does that for mind, Affection does that for soul. So these augs, these chems, these drugs are what allow you to boost your abilities temporarily. When it wears off, you have a chance to become addicted or have a side effect. All right. Was one-page rules the inspiration for abilities table? No, it was not. Electrolytic capacitors have been known to go pop. Yes, indeed. All right, here we go. Biographs. You can install biographs. Whenever you install or remove one, first of all, it must be done by a doctor. In the setting, it's a relatively new technology, say 30 years old. So whenever you install or remove one, it's a pretty traumatizing experience to your body. So it says you have to roll, and if failed, you gain a random malus. Reiterating what I said earlier, biographs don't have prereqs, and their rules never depend on your character scores. They act on their own. They're their own technology. Levels the playing field. So here start biographs that I've only come up with like 12 of them so far, but I'm looking for playtesters to brainstorm ideas. Adrenodendrites slot must go in your torso. Rules: whenever you fail to soak a wound, you may attempt to soak it a second time. Flavor: this just gives a little flavorful explanation of how it works. And then there'll be artwork. Explosive knee brace slot goes on your legs. Rules: whenever you attempt a physical feat that specifically relies on the use of your legs, apply a 2 dice bonus. Again, it's incumbent upon the players to tell the admin when they think a thing on their character sheet should apply to a situation. I'm not going to read through all of these, but let's see. InfiniOptics, Deep Learning Module. So Deep Learning Module, slot. This one goes in your head. Rules: whenever you apply knack, double the amount of dice rolled. That's nice. Synaptech arm wraps, Magneto shield, live wire reticle. Live wire reticle can go in your left arm or your right arm or your head. Says whenever you roll to fire a weapon, apply a 1 dice bonus. Just a universal thing that makes you a little better at shooting no matter what you're shooting. So we go through all these. It says, and many, many more to come. Playtesters, brainstorm biographs. Okay. All right, Rook City. This is the main setting. There's going to be a chess motif going throughout it. So this section will be populated. This will be basically half the book. And this is what Scott B. Smith has been hired for. All right, got a chapter here on For the Admin. Talks about homebrewing, good practices, some likely questions, further reinforcements. So further reinforcements. It's going to be tempting, especially if you're coming from another role-playing system, to arbitrarily say, wow, I think that's an easy task. I'm going to give him an extra dice. Or do the opposite. Can't do that? No need to do that. It should be very simple for the admin. Either a roll is needed or there isn't. If there is, pick which pillar is applicable and tell the player that. The player will appeal if they think any of their stuff applies. Should be very easy for the admin. How to design a scenario, role-playing versus role-playing. Both are good, and it totally depends on what your group likes to do. Cheat sheets. Okay, non-player characters. The monster manual portion. This will all be one book. That's the goal. This whole game will be in one book. So this is sort of what a stat block will look like. Still finalizing it. Yeah, none of this is done. I'm still finalizing it. All right, and then we come back to the character sheet at the back. So that is the full current state of the actual book, which I'm just going to use as playtesting packets. So packet number 1 should come out in the next few weeks. Going back to... Yeah, all right. So, to take a moment to talk about the theory that went into this. Your pillars are 1, 2, or 3. Most rolls start saying roll body, roll mind, roll soul. So you're rolling 1 to 3 dice. You're starting down here, 17, 31, or 42% chance to succeed, which feels about right. I mean, 42 is not great, but if you're doing something untrained, strictly based on your instincts, because you have a 3 in that pillar, 42% seems about right. If you have a trait that would bolster that thing, that is where the effect starts to compound itself. Most traits say add your pillar to as a bonus to some roll. So if your score is a 3 and you've got 2 ranks, you're adding 6 dice. If you have if you have 2 ranks in that trait but your score is a 1, you're only adding 2 dice. So what this does is it prevents min-maxing. There is no way to bridge the gap or make your character a jack of all trades. The fact that traits depend on the value of your pillars means you're gonna make choices. The player is gonna make choices that complement their pillars well. I've sort of designed the traits and the loadouts and the choices so that, again, to refer to other game systems, it'd be the equivalent of picking 2 classes among like 8 class choices. If you could multi-class any 2 of those together, that's sort of what it would feel like. That'll be the equivalent. Except, again, you don't have to worry about picking a class. You just a la carte from the traits. Some of the traits are simple. Here's one. Lucky. You have 1 extra knack die to spend per day. And again, that would stack. So if you have 3 ranks in Lucky, you have 3 extra knack dice to spend per day. All right. All in one book. Mechanics seem like they're well on their way to being elegant in their simplicity. Yep, that's the goal. Broad scope question. If the game does well, have you considered additional books later on? Oh, absolutely. This was originally conceived as genre agnostic, and then it would be a big book with a couple of sections for fantasy, cyberpunk, western, space opera, etc. Because the power curve system, this curve right here, is what it's all about. This curve is the gospel, and but I decided that what I like and what I think other people like is a defined setting. So yes, there'll be other books. There'll be high fantasy. If this does well, I will be taking the power curve system and doing a high fantasy book. Super excited. Running my own RPG. Core rules as physical, mental, and spiritual vitals, but they're individual health tracks. Okay, cool. Gunship playing. I love Gunship. This is just a 3-hour synthwave mix that I have been obsessed with lately. I'm going to go back to the first song because I love falling asleep to it. Alright, so I'm also open to titles. Neon Skies is just the code name. It's just a working title. If I Google it, I'm sure it exists as some sort of IP. Probably not a game, but something. So, all right. Where is this able for purchase initially? I haven't decided that yet. Again, there will be digital distribution, and I want to do a print run by the end of this calendar year. DriveThru RPG is the lead contender, but I'm looking at other options right now too. Digital distribution is super easy, and I've done it a lot. I've published several products. I've never done a physical print run, so I need to talk to some of my compatriots, some of my colleagues, and see how they've done it, like hankering. For anyone who joined late, the latest news is I am moving. We're getting a new house. And so the next 2 months or so, I may be radio silent. The good thing is, even though I can't, I'm gonna have to pack all this up. Can't do any crafting, but I got a computer. I can be working on Neon Skies, and that is what I will be doing. I'm gonna take this opportunity to focus hard on working through, on getting this book done. Make a video, I'll purchase. Thank you for your content. Hey, thanks, man. Thank you, Dennis. What state are you moving to? We're moving 15 minutes down the road. We're just moving into a much bigger house. This is a good house. It was our starter house. We've been here 11 years. It's a little overdue. We have a lot of equity, so we're moving into a big house. It's got a full, huge finished basement with its own bedroom. And that is going to become the new armory. So this right now, this is a shared multi-purpose room with the kids homeschooling. When they were homeschooling because of the pandemic. And then this half of the room has been my work area. But all of this in the next few days is going to be in boxes. And I'll just have the computer here. Nope, no wedding ring diamonds tonight. Mophidius makes nice hard covers. Okay. Oh, Modifius. Got it. Alright. I'm wondering if they... I'll check their form factor. Because I want to do full color, glossy page, 8.5 by 11 form factor. What you're seeing now is pretty close to the final design language. So I need someone who can good printers, vibrant inks to capture the neons. And some of these pages are going to be pretty saturated. Up front, there's going to be a full 2-page spread. And you can see all of these reserved for artwork blocks. There's going to be a lot of artwork, full color. So, Jostens can print high quality books. Okay, Jostens. All right. Hey, Patrick, thanks. I appreciate that. Well, everyone keep tuned to my Facebook. That's where it'll drop. I will not be doing anything about this on Tabletop Crafters Guild because it's not a guild thing. It's not crafting, and it's really a me thing, so I don't want to monopolize it or, use that bully pulpit just because I'm an admin. That wouldn't be right. So follow my Facebook page, and that's where everything's going to be going down over the next few weeks. Or maybe I'll have another beer and stay up all night tonight and get the first playtest packet done. We shall see. All right. Any chance on resin models for the game system? Dennis, good question. Evan Carruthers reached out to me the other day, and we have talked about partnering up. So I would say it hasn't gone further than that. We just said, yeah, that'd be cool, and it's something we both want to do. So, yes, we may very well have resin models custom for the Neon Skies system. Any vehicle rules? It's a good question. Vehicle rules. Probably not. One thing that annoys me, and versions of D&D have gotten better and better about this, but for example, in the second edition D&D book, there was a table about movement speed when you're on a slope and the percent adjustments having to do with that. Who has ever cared about that or executed it at the game table? only the sickest masochists, in my opinion. So having dedicated sub rules for vehicles, that might be worth it, because I do have a dedicated subsystem here for combat and one for hacking, right? So it's not taboo, but it really needs to be justified. And vehicle usage might be. So I've taken a note. Thanks. Thanks for being on. Thanks to all of you for being awesome. More like. All right. I mean, I've shown you the power curve system, so vehicle usage would be like... Well, here's something. So the XP90 security bot is going to be a non-player character. It has 4 conditions, just like any person. The difference is its armor score is like through the roof, so the chance of it being injured is very low. That's how I get away with showing the stuff that should be big and tough without having hit points in the game. Driving rules. You know, So a core tenet of the setting would need to revolve around driving, gunfights while driving, attempted heists, which kind of fits. So, yeah. All right. Solo playability. Yeah, Craig, I hear you. I got no plans for that though. Sorry. I would love to do it. Any system I've ever seen that has solo or solo options or an AI strip that you can follow, I have found to be tedious or just uninvolving. I like playing at a table with other people or online with other people. So I got no plans for solo playability, but I'll take a note. Maybe something will strike me. Or if you have ideas, feel free to email me. Will Crafters Guild members be stated out NPCs? I could base some on them. Scotty would definitely be a fixer. Patrick, thanks for your kind words. Thank you very much. Ships and speeders in Star Wars D6 is always fun. Okay. Solo Rangers of Shadow Deep. So Star Wars D6 regarding vehicles, and for solo Rangers of Shadow Deep being a thing to research. Yeah, I'm actually not terribly versed in role-playing systems, so like, of course, D&D, Vampire the Masquerade, and I've read the Cyberpunk series, read Pathfinder. I'm not terribly well versed as others, like if you talk to a Scotty McFarlane type, for example, and I kind of want to keep it that way. I'm trying not to be influenced so that I can bring something new to the table. That being said, the past 15 years has been a golden era for amateur game design, which I am sure someone has come up with this curve before. Do you have a favorite mechanic so far? Again, there's only one mechanic. It's the core mechanic of the of using this power curve. You start down here. If you're untrained, you're rolling 1, 2, or 3 dice, and then you tack on to that to get yourself up there and be less vulnerable to flukes by using your traits a la carte. The dives for hacking was actually much more complex than I just walked you through. But in playtesting it here with my group, it got very tedious. There's an expression that says perfection is achieved not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing more you can take away. And the hacking dive subsystem was overly complicated. So like you wouldn't just go down a level, you would have to move over a number of nodes and then There was a harvest action for the thing you were there for. It just went on and on too, because there were so many moves needed. It would take like an hour, and it wasn't fun. So this has been much simplified. Shadowrun. I got the PDF from thetrove.net before it went down. I haven't had a chance to read through it yet. As I understand it, Shadowrun is more of a gonzo setting, right? It's got some fantasy mixed in, and it's like, which is cool. I don't think there's any such thing as cyberpunk, right? Cyberpunk can have all sorts of permutations. How long have you been playtesting internally? A couple months. Hello to Iran. Hello from Iran. Hello to Iran. Shadow and Sun are here. Yes, I assume that is Shadow talking, not the Sun, saying that he's the RPG expert. You ever played Sega or Super NES version of Shadowrun? No, I have not. Hacking something you can use in combat. Excellent question. Yes. So two things. There's two kinds of hacking we talked about earlier. Hijacks, which are actions you can take in combat. So I think what you're asking would be the spike hijack. There's also dives, and you can be diving in the midst of combat. It's just on your turn, you perform a dive or a bail instead of a combat action. And that's a scenario where, like, you're set up in a cafe maybe. This happened in a play test here at this table behind me. So one guy was set up at a table at a cafe. The other players had given some ciphers to him to give him the best chance they could. Every turn, he was diving. He failed, got burned. Real-world security started to converge. The other players had to fend them off while this guy continued his dive to finish the mission. So combat was going on. Combat began and was going on in rounds, but the one who was in the midst of the dive wasn't firing a gun. He was doing an OmniNet move. So hacking, this section, dovetails right into combat if combat should occur. Steampunk. Yes. Steampunk does not have permutations. Steampunk is one thing. Sorry if you're ever... Oh, yeah, no problem. How many people are on? 51. Not bad for a Flash live stream. All right. Cool. So, yeah, I'm going to wrap up here. Again, follow my Facebook page. Not Crafters Guild, but the Wylox Armory Facebook page. That is where I'll be dropping materials, and you guys can playtest if you like. Justin's story, answer to your question is yes. All right. 51 likes, 51 people. Yeah, that's cool. All right. You guys have a great weekend, however far you are into it. I will talk to you again soon. And I thank you very much for joining me. So, Happy New Year. Make things and play games.